You're listening to the Bear Down Chicago podcast with Logan Bradley, Ryan Dangle, Patrick Sheldon, Brendan Shagrew, and Jack Wright. The Bear Down Chicago podcast. Yeah, we're that Bears podcast.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into another edition of the Bear Down Chicago podcast. I'm your host for the second week in a row, Brendan Shagrew. Ryan Dingle can't be with us today, and actually neither can Patrick Sheldon, but for good reason for Mr. Sheldon. I just want to get it out of the way right away that his son won his baseball tournament, so those kids are having their championship rings, literally, and he's celebrating with his son, which is such a cool thing to see. It's going to be a smaller crew today, but if you want to follow me on Twitter or X, make sure you get me at Brendan Shagrew. That's Sugrue. And make sure you check out my work at bearswire.com. And so with me, we got the two-man weave. It's Mr. Jack Wright. You can follow him at BearDownJack. Jack, you had an interesting week today, or this week. I mean, not today, but you've had an interesting week. You shared with us that the Bears had you so distraught and so well. You know what? I'm just going to let you tell the story because I think it's much better if you do it. So, what did you do after the Bears had you so stressed this week?
I'll tell you what. I mean, I did something, Brendan, that I have never done before. Probably something that I would have just absolutely clowned somebody for doing if it were not me. So we were, as we'll talk about probably a little bit later, in a couple of heated exchanges on our Bear Down Chicago podcast thread. And in the midst of the one in the second half of the week about the Sweat signing, I was getting gas. So I got out of my car and I went ahead and I pumped the gas and I got back in the car and picked up back on the thread. And I think I shot off a message and I heard the pump click off, right? So the gas was done. And then I just got so lost and irritated and frustrated. I started driving away and I hear, something snap and crash. And I'm like, are you bleeping kidding me? And I look back and the stinking hose is still hanging out of my car. It was, I got out, I grabbed it, I put it back in the thing. I saw this lady looking at me, shaking her head. I was like, oh, yeah, you're going to judge me? Okay, you're going to judge me. Fair enough.
Just the silent shake like this.
Oh, yeah. She's like, you idiot. So I went inside. I told the attendant what I had done. And then I got off the thread for a while. I didn't want to crash on the way home.
That's when you know when you can't properly pump gas because the Bears, right? And everything are stressing you out. Yeah. You know what Matt Eberflus would say, Jack?
What would he say?
Well, you didn't execute the gas pumping properly, and we're gonna get better at that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, Coach Flus. I will try not to drive away with the handle in my car going forward. Good lesson.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is a good lesson. So look, we're here talking about yet another Bears loss. They lose to the Saints 24-17. This one wasn't totally expected. Or I'm sorry, this one, I guess I was fully expecting it, I guess. This kind of went exactly how I thought it would go. Before we get into any breakdowns, which I do have one, if you'd like to hear it, I just kind of want to get your quick thoughts on the game, Jack.
I think it was closer than expected, and that was nice. I think I thought that New Orleans would handle us pretty easily for two reasons. One, because of the environment, and sidebar, I don't think we'd won a game there since 1991, if I'm correct. And secondly, I think the team is just not up to par yet. and especially with a rookie quarterback who, as it turned out, struggled. Without those turnovers, we maybe pull off a victory in New Orleans today. So yeah, I mean, we're still building, and there were some things to be excited about. And but I think per usual, we're pretty lucky. I mean, we're pretty used to this by now. They are the heartbreak Bears, and I think like there are moments that we think they might pull it out, and you get a little bit into it like the old days because you're a fan and you just want them to win, and you're like, they have a chance to win, and then they really do break your heart quite a bit. So it's tough.
And nobody wanted to win this game. It was the weirdest thing. Like, it just kept going back and forth. The Bears throw an interception. The Saints miss a field goal. There's penalties. They can't capitalize. And it felt like the Bears got the ball back like 3 different times. And we just kept thinking, wow, the Bears could still win this. Like, they've had so many turnovers, whether it's the fumbles or the interceptions, and you're still at the end of it, like with 3 minutes left, that things could get better and things could actually come back. But look, it's the Superdome. Yeah, the Bears haven't won there since I was 6 months old. I remember it.
6 months, really?
I remember it fondly.
I bet, vividly, every moment. When Tommy Waddle caught the touchdown pass in the end
Yeah,
zone.
that was my first word. Waddle.
Yeah. Wow.
Wawa and cheater for Harbaugh. No, I'm just kidding. I love Jim Harbaugh.
And sorry, one more thing. I can't remember the numbers, but was it Harbaugh? I believe he was like 2 for something, like 2 for 9 and 100 yards or something. They were saying this week on Waddle and Sylvie. I mean, atrocious numbers.
Yeah, he had like 66 yards total, I think.
Yeah.
And I think he was like 12 of 35. I don't know. It was bad. Like, even by Bears quarterback standards, it was bad. So with that, I just sort of had a feeling that they're not going to win this game, the Superdome, no matter how good or bad the Saints are. It's just not a good place for the Bears to play, which is ironic considering that it's the home of their one and only Super Bowl title. Like, that's kind of ironic. Especially for somebody like Tyson Bagent going into like that raucous environment. Just sort of had a feeling he would throw a bunch of picks, maybe keep the Bears into it a little bit. And it kind of played out how I thought. So I was my final score actually in my predictions was 26-17. So I was only off by 2 points.
That was an excellent prediction.
Yeah, unfortunately.
He did. It's what's wild is that, while the turnovers, reveal that it was difficult for him. I thought he did an especially good job of making changes at the line. He was super calm, even though the noise was escalated. And they had their checks, and he was very good, I felt like, about communicating the checks to everybody on the line. Seemed like everybody got them. And you know what I'm saying? Like, there wasn't a whole lot of there were penalties, but it wasn't because of that necessarily. It wasn't because of audibles or changes that he had made on the line. I think oftentimes the changes that he made were communicated and worked, which was impressive. There's a lot. I mean, we'll talk about it later, but there's some things to be impressed with about Tyson Bagent.
I think so too. Like, we harped last week on the pre-snap penalties. I think there was only a couple this week, and for being in an environment where it is easy to false start, it is easy to kind of miss those checks and maybe have an illegal formation or something like that. There were very few of those, in a sense. So at least that was there. I mean, but we're kind of grasping at straws, I feel like, with looking at these silver linings potentially. But look, we've got a lot to break down here. Before we do, though, we want to hear from our friends at Sheridan's. So, Jack, take it away.
Yeah, they're the best, without a doubt. I still have some T-shirts in my car for you guys, and I'll get them to you as soon as possible. Ooh. Thanks to our guy, Will, at Sheridan's Barbershop, which is located in historic downtown Wheaton, Illinois, and has been serving the community for 69 years with 6 barbers and open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. They have appointments available to book online or by phone at your convenience. You can go to sheridansbarbershop.com, or you can call 630-668-0137, or you can head over to Naperthrill, and you can go to the newly acquired Hensel's Barbershop located in downtown Naperville, Illinois, or Naper Chill or Naper Thrill, depending on what day you catch me on. That one's been open since 1966, and there are 6 barbers there. They're open Tuesdays through Saturday. You can walk in if you want, or you can make an appointment. And for that one, you can book yours at henselsbarbershop.com. Hopefully you don't tire of me spelling it, but it is an odd spelling. So it's HENCZELS, Hensel's Barbershop. So check out Sheridan's, check out Hensel's, where traditional meets modern.
All right, Jack, I'm going to leave this up to you. Would you like to hear a breakdown, or should we just go right into it?
Since Ryan's not here, I'm just going to do it. Let's hear it, baby. I want to hear it.
Me up, I guess. All right, let's do it.
I mean, I enjoy them greatly, and so do our fans, I think.
We go down to the Big Easy, aka exactly what it's not like to be a Bears fan, as the Bears take on the New Orleans Saints. And let me tell you, folks, Urban Street was flowing with Bears fans who had the beads ready for hopefully a fun weekend. And speaking of beads, it was the Bears who flashed first. Tyson Benyagent tossed some dough up to Cole Kmet for the opening drive touchdown, but the Saints went marching down the field the other way on the ensuing possession. A streetcar named Derek found Chris Olave Garden with the spicy meatball of a touchdown pass to make it 7-7. Yeah, I know it's an Italian reference in the French Quarter, but whatever. Agent and Kmet went back for seconds to retake the lead 14-7, but the Saints couldn't be stopped because Taysom, King of the Hill, said, "Damn it, Bobby, I score touchdowns and touchdown accessories," when he tied the game at 14-all at halftime. And a pair of field goals kept this one close, but then New Orleans decided to put this game to bed when Juwan Howard-Johnson said night-night with a touchdown pass to go up 24-17. Tyson Benyagent decided to switch over to his other favorite pastry, turnovers, to end this game as he had 3 interceptions with 1 fumble. Saints go marching 24-17 for the win.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, huh?
Do you, while the game is going on or throughout the course of the week, start making like sort of the tie-ins and references? Because, I mean, I was going to count them actually. I was going to try to write them down or count them, but there's a good 12 to 15 beautifully woven in references throughout that. It's super creative. What would you mind? Do you want to share your process, or would you rather
I can share my process? Sure. Okay. So I usually I will say very rarely do I ever look anything up. I try to just always go off my head. This week, the only thing I looked up was because I was like, there's something with Olave. I don't know what it is. And I saw a fantasy team name that said Olave Garden. I was like, okay, yeah, that's it. But everything else was off the cuff. And so what I usually do is like, I think about it during the week. And if I'm just like randomly thinking about something, a reference will come in my head and I'm like, all right, I'll save that for later. And hopefully it works out. Sometimes like I'll have stuff that just doesn't work because nobody does anything. But I knew with Bajent and Beignets with New Orleans, I was like, that's a lock. A streetcar named Derek, that was a lock. And Taysom, King of the Hill, was a lock. So yeah, a few of them I was like, I've had them in the chamber. And it's just, you gotta hope that they sort of present themselves so it happens.
It's super funny. It's good stuff, my man.
Oh, thank you. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this. Anybody who's in the chat as well. I know we got some people in there. Adam Chrisman, TJ Brooks, of course. Feel free to chime in. We'll share them because it's only the 2 of us. So we'd love to kind of get everybody's feedback. But yeah, like I said, I just thought this game sort of went as expected, but I'm telling you, I was hyped for that first drive. Like I don't remember, maybe the Commanders was the other one, but like I just was feeling like just energized and excited and just something I hadn't felt before with that first drive. When the Bears wanted the ball, they, for the 3rd time, I think this year, they decided to keep the ball and not defer, which is very unusual for an NFL team. And they go down and Bajent has himself like the best drive of the game, culminated by one of the best Cole Kmet catches. We've probably like the best or second best catch we've seen in Cole Kmet's career. So I want to hear your thoughts about like that first drive, because I thought it was perfect.
The catch was remarkable, especially, I don't know about you. Do you ever, when you're watching a play, do you ever like fast forward in your mind as to how it's going to turn out? Because on that one, the way that one was going to turn out in my mind was that it was just going to be like this ugly batting around of the ball with nobody actually getting any type of possession whatsoever. I mean, I thought where the defender was draped on Kmet's body position and the placement of the ball, in my mind, I thought, no freaking way will he come down with that. And so the way that he then ended up not only catching it while he was diving, but then possessing it like through the catch, through the fall. I mean, it was really it was a great catch. I mean, just a really phenomenal catch. As far as the first drive, I've got to say, I wonder what you think about this. I'm not sure why we come out and empty first play of the game 2 weeks in a row, especially against the defenses that we're facing. Now, I don't think it backfired this week like it did last week, but I'm curious as to, I mean, maybe I shouldn't question because ultimately they marched down the field and they scored. And a lot of times that first drive is based on scripted plays. And a lot of times those drives are the best drives that you have all game long. And so it did work. Is the team still trying to find an identity in the long run of the entirety of the game? Is that the way that you'd like to see the Bears start? Or is it just not worth second guessing because, hey, Jack, they scored on the first drive?
I don't think it's worth second guessing because you're on the road. And I think this is kind of what Getsy's done because it happened to the Chargers. It happened. You know what? Actually, coincidentally, I don't think maybe this isn't a coincidence, but think about the Commanders game, the Chargers game, and the Saints game. What do all three of those games have in common?
Opening drive touchdowns?
No, unfortunately, because the Chargers didn't have it. But
right.
opening play, deep-ish shots to Darnell Mooney.
Yes.
Each one. Darnell Mooney was the first one for the Commanders. He couldn't reel it in. Chargers, that 41-yard pass that ended up going backwards that didn't result in points. And then this week, Darnell Mooney was the first one to get the pass. And I think it was maybe a 15-yarder. So Getsy's clearly saying we know we're on the road. We're already kind of playing from behind anyway. Let's just go out there, make some big plays, see what happens. And it's now worked in this. The play itself didn't work against the Commanders, but they did score a touchdown on the first drive. Mm-hmm. The play worked against the Chargers and it got them to midfield, but they couldn't do anything with it. And they went backwards, didn't get the touchdown. And then this week, of course, they did get the touchdown. So in a sense, they all kind of did work. I don't mind the aggressiveness because you have to play. What better way to get the crowd out of it than going for that deep shot? Because then, the opening crowd's like, oh God, this is a little bit different now. And then you give your defense potentially a chance to play up on the road. I think that's, not a bad strategy.
And I mean, it hasn't translated into wins. You still think taking the ball, which goes against, I believe, pretty much the entire rest of the NFL strategy when it comes to usually you defer, right? So
usually,
I mean, maybe for this Bears team, it is the right thing to do just based on what you alluded to a moment ago.
Maybe. So that part, that is a little bit trickier because then, a team could double up at the half and you essentially gave them the opportunity to do so because you go down in the second half and then you get the ball back and then, you could be playing from behind even more. That didn't happen with the Saints this time. They got the 3 and out. It did happen against the Commanders though. The Commanders opened the third quarter with that big drive. And I believe the Chargers might have 2, or at least they doubled up. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But that is the other side of the coin though. I think it's a fair point. Whereas you do that, but you better damn score because if you don't, now you're just, you're putting a lot more pressure on your defense because that third quarter is coming. So
it's interesting. I was listening on that point, listening to the last Manning cast. It was a bit of a revelation for me because I can't remember, which team had possession of the ball, but there was 3 or 4 minutes left. And that team that had the ball with 3 or 4 minutes left in the first half was set to get the kick, to get a return in the second half. And where did Peyton Manning's mind go? He's like, that team that possessed the ball. I can't remember who. Let's say it was the Bills. The Bills in that situation, he was like, what we can do is we can score quick and then we can get a stop and we can score again before half. And then we'll get the ball at the beginning of the second half. And that was Manning's thinking, from a guy who Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever do it. He said that, almost like it was rote memory. Like that, here's the strategy, guys. Here's what we're going to try to do. Quick score, get a stop, get the ball back if we can. And of course, he's aiming high, but at the very least, you get a score at the beginning of the half, you get the ball back, and you get another score at the beginning of the second half. So I don't know. I guess I wouldn't mind looking back to see how those first drives turned out for our opponents in the last 3 games, and being able to receive the ball in the second half.
Well, it is interesting you say it, because the Bears did have the missed field goal at the end of the first half with about 30 seconds left, basically.
Yep.
The Saints got 31 yards, and they were in a position to potentially kick a late field goal, but they got pushed back, and then they had to, do the Hail Mary. But the option was there, and then they didn't get the like I said, they had the 3rd and out or 3 and out coming into the second half.
Right.
So, thankfully it wasn't executed, but the options were there. So
to score and score.
Correct. So, I don't know. And it is interesting for a team that just isn't very good to kind of have that mentality. Right. But I liked it. And I liked the play calling too. This is something we were talking a little bit about before we came on. A lot of people were blasting Luke Getsy as usual. They didn't like the play calling. I thought it was okay. I was like, maybe I didn't love it because there were some things I would change, but I thought the plays were actually pretty good. I think the execution wasn't there. And not to sound like Eberflus, but it's hard to win a game when you have 5 turnovers, but it's only a 1-score game. You outgained the Saints like crazy for the entire game. You sustained, most of your drives were sustained. You also had a missed field goal in there. So I actually thought the balance of run and pass was pretty good. The plays themselves, I thought that were pretty effective. It's just they weren't fully executed well. What do you think?
As we talked about, pre-show fist fight. I can't steal that from Waddle and Sylvie.
Yeah.
We weren't even fist fighting. We were hugging. So I think it was, I think I agree with you. I can only think of 2 beefs that people might have, but I'd love to hear if there are more beefs, please. You saw me complain about the wide receiver screen isolation to Evans, and I just didn't understand why Evans. I think if you're going to run a wide receiver screen in a crucial late game situation, I would think that Evans would be pretty low down the list of people that I would want to throw it to. I think maybe if they are doubling DJ Moore, then you've got good numbers on the opposite side. Because the defense has decided to, stack the other half of the field. But even then, I don't know why. I think I would go Mooney. I think I would go Scott. I think I would go, well, I won't say his name because everybody will get pissed. But there's a lot of guys I think I would go with who are elusive.
Oh, say his name, Jack. You can say it.
No, not going to say it. So, and I think your response is good, but I think there are people who would argue that you still scheme to get DJ Moore open regardless. And actually, I think it was Rusty on my thread was saying, you don't think Tyreek Hill would have been schemed open? You don't think Stephon Diggs would have been schemed open? You don't think Justin Jefferson would have been schemed open? So I think they're both good points. Your point, and I'm kind of stealing it from you in advance, is that, the defensive secondary of the New Orleans Saints is elite, and they have 2 corners that are outstanding. And he was bound to maybe have a bad game. But maybe if there were a history of Luke Getsy isolating DJ Moore and getting him the ball, but this was just an outlier, I might be willing to give him more of a pass. But he doesn't seem to quite be able to figure out how to scheme his best playmaker open. And that's a real problem. All the other stuff you said, I agree with. I thought it was a great balance of run and pass. Our time of possession was fantastic. We outgained them in total yards, 368 to 301. We were comparable on first downs, third downs, not so great in the red zone, 2 for 4. But generally speaking, and especially with a rookie quarterback, with a game that it seemed like he could handle, with a play sheet that seemed like fit to his strengths, pretty good, not bad.
Yeah. Okay. I'll give you that on DJ Moore. And maybe this is also me just not being surprised that he was unable to do anything.
Right.
Because look, going back to his days in Carolina, I saw this earlier in the week. I put out the stat on Twitter. I used it in my articles. DJ Moore against the Saints, he's awful because the Saints know how to play him. Marshawn Lattimore is, I don't know. I don't think he was lined up on him exclusively this game. Didn't hear from him that much, but they know how to blanket DJ Moore. And so in 3 games, I went back to 2021 because like recent history, I think made sense to do that. Back in 2021 for the, 3 games since DJ Moore played, like I said, in 3 games, he had like 4 catches for 41 yards and no touchdowns. In the 1 game that Lattimore missed, he had like 8 catches for 79 yards and a touchdown. So that told me that the Saints play DJ tight and it's going to be hard to get him the ball. So I sort of already kind of cast him aside that like, hey, this is not going to be a DJ Moore game. Other people are going to have to step up, which I thought Darnell Mooney would have, and he did, thankfully. But you are right in the sense that he is your top playmaker. He's your top playmaker. He's already started to like ask for the ball more. You got to find different ways to get him there. And they weren't able to do that. It does happen sometimes. And to your point about Tyreek Hill, he was bottled up today against the Chiefs too, but that was the first time. He was basically able to do anything he wanted for the first few weeks or for the first half of the season. That hasn't been the case with Getsy and DJ Moore this year because we've seen this now for the last few weeks. So your point is well taken. TJ Brooks, Getsy lost credibility when he tried command under center. Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard to come back from.
That motion. I mean, for what it's worth, and it's maybe not worth much, I've seen other teams do it. I still don't like it. In fact, I think I hate it. I just don't know why you motion in a tight end and then have that tight end take a snap from center, which he's not accustomed to doing. There's a lot of better options than that. Now, TJ, let's be fair. Does he lose all credibility because of that? I mean, we could maybe start adding a list of things, like the predictability with the screens or, some of the handling of Justin Fields that we're not pleased with. And we could probably get to a lack of credibility, but I get it. People, I mean, I guess the thing I would ask, if maybe you agree with Brendan or if you agree with me here, and it's a point that we're probably going to come back to later, but is there a possibility that these coaches who are relatively new in their positions are learning, developing, and growing just like the players? And we used to always say, maybe it was cliche, like when we practiced, you either got worse or you got better, but you didn't stay the same, and I mean, is there a chance that Luke Getsy is getting better at what it is that he does? I'm on record for saying he either play calls like a champion or he play calls terribly. Do we have 2 games in a row now, Brendan, or 3 out of the last 4 that he play called decently, or no?
Yeah, I think so. There was a few, again, you can always, and you could do this with any team too. This isn't just the Bears. You can nitpick and say, I don't like that play. That was trash. I didn't like this play. The Tyler Scott end around, for example, with Tyson Bagent trying to block Cameron Jordan. Yeah, don't do that.
Bad.
Don't put your quarterback out there against a former All-Pro defensive lineman. But I think overall he's been better. I mean, you can take like the chunks from week 1 to week 3 versus week 4 on, and maybe like the Vikings game, I think is the big outlier in that sense because the Vikings game just had no rhythm. I understand that was also the game Fields went out and maybe things changed, but at the same time, we didn't like what we saw no matter what. But for the most part, it was a decently called game. I do think that Adam Chrisman has a fair point here too. Foreman only had a couple carries in the 4th quarter. Yep. He was eaten. He was, really, really busting out, especially in that second half. And then they kind of went away from him. Part of that, I think, is when the Saints, kind of started to take a little bit more control of the game. You start playing from behind a little bit more, but somebody like Foreman, you do need to run the ball with him a little bit more, especially as he was getting going, especially running on that right side. But look, yes, I would agree saying that overall Luke Getsy has improved. How much has he improved? Is it like drastic enough where we feel good about it overall? I don't think so. But at the same time, these coaches are growing. I said that last year as well. And then, of course, the first few weeks of the season, he completely regressed and things got worse. But you're right. Like these men are growing. They're still relatively new at their jobs. It stinks because it's the NFL, and that can't be the case, especially, when you're making millions of dollars and you're judged on wins and losses and some, sort of that production. But if you're looking for those like small moral victories, yes, he's gotten a bit better.
It was, if we just go back in recent history, it was 13 points against the Vikings, 30 points against the Raiders, 13 against the Chargers, 17 against the Saints. So we are not reaching a point of offensive proficiency and, high scoring. But again, maybe we're just carrying water here. Like, we know it, Bears fans, the Bears aren't very good. The Bears lost. The Bears lose. They've only won 2 games. We understand all of that, and that the offense isn't overly proficient or dynamic. But I do think that it has shown improvement in some facets of the game, as we're specifically talking about, and I do think that's fair. You're starting to see a bit of balance and an effective running attack. You've got, I think, a rookie quarterback who shows nice poise in the pocket and does a nice job of dumping it off when necessary. Seems to be able to hit some crossing routes and find his tight end pretty well. So there's a little bit of balance that's there. So for a team that is still in a rebuild, in the situation that they're in, not bad. Last week, I thought it was honestly kind of a pile of shit to heap a lot of criticism on either, Getsy or Flus, to be honest. You're starting quarterback, you're starting running back, you're starting left guard, you're starting right guard, you're starting safety. Am I forgetting anybody?
Linebacker got hurt.
Yeah, we're all out. I mean, and like I said, and we don't have to go back a week for long. We don't have to do that. But you tell any coach, anywhere in a rebuild against the Chargers on the road that you're going to, hey, I need you to go win that game with all those pieces missing. I mean, come on. Like, that's nearly impossible, right? I mean, and they didn't play.
Well,
they didn't play very well, but
no, they didn't. And that's look, we're not going to rehash it, but I'll just say they got their doors blown off. Like, it was 30-13. It should have been a lot more because the Chargers took their gas off the pedal, or the pedal off the gas, because they didn't need to.
They were getting gas.
Let's
they got irritated and they drove away.
Oh my God. That is just you.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I thought that was the Chargers.
That's all right. All right. We're going to, I want to kind of break this up a little bit. I want to do Outhouse Penthouse before we get into, I want to have a conversation about Tyson Bagent. So with that, it is time for
the Outhouse and the Penthouse.
I almost just want to do it myself because I feel like I can do that voice too. But the Outhouse and the Penthouse is brought to you by our friend Jeff Cadwallader. He has been working hard since the beginning of the year to expand his real estate services to now include commercial properties. And the guy has been killing it. It's the beginning. He started at the beginning of the year. It's now towards the end of the year. He's been growing, and it doesn't matter if you're a business owner, a homeowner, or an investor. If you're looking to buy, sell, or lease commercial or residential properties, Jeff is your guy because he still does residential as well. So if you're in the market, if you're looking to buy, looking to sell, looking to even just get some advice, it's a very difficult process. We know, especially, if you're interested in buying or selling commercial real estate, that's a whole nother process. Jeff's your guy. So make sure you call or text him with SVN Landmark today at 630-254-4734 or visit genevajeff.com. All right. So because it's just us two, there's a lot more options. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and forth. So we're going to do 2 each. Yeah.
Let's go. Oh,
what is that?
I have seen my screen do, like, it does things.
Oh, if you do like little reactions like that?
Yeah.
I saw somebody do a heart. Yeah. Like, you could do that. I think you can. Hold on.
Look at that.
Where is it? Oh my God. Why isn't mine working?
For those of you listening,
no,
we're
come on,
making thumbs up and doing other things, and the screen does icons.
Did you do 2? Did that
Is that
work?
what I did?
I don't know. Why is that?
Oh yeah, I
Why is
said
mine not
2.
working?
You get 2? I don't
Yeah.
know.
It only works for you. I can't do it. What the hell?
That's so strange. I don't know what that's kind
Oh
of cool.
man,
Okay.
that is cool. All right, Jack. You know what? Lead us off.
All right. So they lost. So it's outhouse. Yes.
It is
Yeah, it is.
gross.
Well, listen, I feel like there's a little bit of a saga with Eddie Jackson. I was very critical of him 2 seasons ago, and I think rightfully so at the time because we didn't know what was happening in his personal life. In terms of just his play on the field, it was bad, and there's no way around it. It was like the infamous, quote from the practice where he said, like, "Don't worry about tackling, just get interceptions." And then we found out things were really incredibly difficult in his life, and I think a lot of us paused and we're like, "Okay, wait a minute." We've got people here. People are going through trauma. Bit of a bounce back last year. Felt like he played much better throughout the course of the season. But I think we've got enough of a body of work from Eddie Jackson now to see that his time has passed here at Chicago. He's a poor tackler. He's a really poor tackler. He's I think been a poor tackler really the preponderance of his career here. He tries to tackle high. He tried to tackle Taysom Hill high. Like that dude is built like a brick shit house. Like you don't try to tackle him high. And I think the last thing I would say about him is that I always just see, and I said this on the thread, I see him as always hedging his bets, always hanging back a little bit to be like, maybe if no one else makes the tackle, I will. Now you could say, well, he's the safety, and so maybe he's hanging back just in case a play breaks. But I just feel like he'd rather avoid contact. Does he get any pass deflections? Does he get many interceptions? I don't see him making plays. I don't see him being a dynamic safety in the league. And I think at the end of the year, he should be bye-bye baby. So Eddie Jackson is in my outhouse.
He did have the first tackle of the game for the Bears, which was interesting. But, I do agree. He kind of just hangs back a little bit. He doesn't make that aggressive play. Maybe he's just worried about getting beat or something. But then guys get an extra 2 to 5 yards out of that if he's not hitting at the first opportunity. So that's very fair.
Yeah.
Mine goes to, we mentioned him already, DJ Moore. It stinks. It's not only the fact that you were sort of taken out of the game. We also had that costly fumble too, when the Bears were kind of driving. It was a very nice pass and catch from Bajan to Moore. He gets it knocked out, and then I believe they were able to score a field goal off that, so they did get points off it. Mm-hmm. So DJ Moore only had 3 catches, 44 yards on 5 targets. Which is not what you want to see out of your number one, which stinks. So I could forgive the stat line, his production, just knowing what the Saints defense can do to him. But you can't have that fumble. That's crucial, especially for somebody like DJ Moore. It just seems out of character for him.
He's very unlike him. He's just so good with the ball, so good after the catch. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. He's been money on over 4.5 catches prop, week in and week out.
Right?
And so I didn't happen to place it this week, but it's surprising to see him have that few catches. Well, I mean, maybe it's unfair, but the world is unfair. I mean, Tyson Bagent would be my other outhouse. I mean, to be responsible for 4 turnovers, I mean, we've got to protect the ball. There's a lot of things that we can say about him being a rookie, but the bottom line is that he was responsible for 4 turnovers, 3 interceptions and a fumble, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And, to have a 5 turnover to no turnover ratio in a game with a team like the Bears pretty much guarantees a loss. And so I think he, in turning the ball over, played a big part in today's loss.
I think so too. And we're going to talk more a little bit about him because I kind of want to get into that in a deeper conversation after this. My other outhouse goes to Matt Eberflus's decision to continue to rotate offensive linemen. Enough. Stop doing it. Okay. I understand guys are coming back from injury and you want to sort of protect him and everything. I understand that. But if a guy's healthy to play and he's healthy enough to start, leave him out there. Okay. Because all you're doing is creating confusion and you're making things worse, because what happened today with Braxton Jones getting the start and then Larry Borom rotating him with him, you're not getting that consistency on the line. I understand that Borum's played now for the last like 4 to 5 weeks because of Braxton's injury, but you're just not letting him gel. And now you're just disrupting a line that, especially on that left side, isn't very good with Cody Whitehair too. Like the right side was clearly the strong side. And Borum himself, once again, did not have a good day. This better be the end of this, okay? I know that you're trying to get these guys reps and everything, but if Braxton's healthy enough to play, let him be out there and keep Borum on the sideline. Just enough with the rotating. I think it's a really stupid idea. This is like the third time I think they've done it. They did it with Tevin Jenkins and Lucas Patrick, and I think they did it with somebody else a few weeks ago.
Atkins or no?
Maybe. I can't remember, but either way, just stop doing it. It doesn't help anything. It confuses everybody. Just enough. So that's my other outhouse.
Any credence to the announcers talking about just sheer wind for Braxton in terms of like his ability to keep up his conditioning and play the position for the entire game?
Maybe.
I mean,
maybe.
Still stop. Still just stop.
Again, stop. If you're not ready,
yeah. No, good point.
Yeah. I think especially as a professional athlete, like we're, are we doing load management now for the NFL? Like, especially when the guys, I just don't buy that, especially when it's not like a knee either. Like I understand it's a neck, but you're still able to move. You're still able to walk. You're still able to potentially run most likely. I just don't totally buy that.
I would agree with that.
All right, Penthouse.
Snake draft, or are you going again, or me?
No, go for it.
Oh, thanks, man. All right, cool. Well, I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Jack Sanborn, as I like to say. That dog can hunt. What a great game, filling in for Edmonds. At the middle linebacker, he had 10 total tackles, including 8 solo tackles and 1 TFL. It was nice to see him come up off the edge, off tackle, and just stymie Alvin Kamara at the line of scrimmage, not 3, 4, 5 yards down the field, which was just great. I mean, from the very onset, Sanborn has had an ability to find the ball and always be around the ball. Whether that's tackling or knockdowns or interceptions, and so it's great to see him just continue to be so good. In the Bears defense.
Somebody asked the question, a few people actually, and I know it was shared on our text thread. Like,
yes,
is it weird that the Bears paid so much money for somebody like Tremaine Edmonds and to a lesser extent TJ Edwards when Jack Sanborn was already such an instinctive player that didn't cost anything, who already showed that he was a good player in this defense? Because he showed overall, he showed a lot more today than maybe like what Tremaine Edmonds has shown in many of his games, even though he's got more turnovers. What do you think about that?
I think it's a valid question. However, 2 things. One, in terms of being able to run sideline to sideline, I think Tremaine Edwards is better. And I guess I'd like to maybe verify this statement by watching, but I believe the other key factor with signing Edmonds was his ability, his height, his agility, his ability to run with RBs and tight ends across zones and formations. And my sense is that Sanborn, as good as he is not as good in the passing game, and we are in an era of being able to stop. If you're in this division, if you're going to win eventually, you're going to have to stop ostensibly Kirk Cousins, and Addison and Justin Jefferson. You're going to have to stop passing games ultimately. And so I think you need linebackers to do that. It's not a bad question though.
Yeah, look, you have to defend the pass. And I think Sanborn does that to an extent. He's more of that downhill kind of guy who can get in at the line of scrimmage, make those TFLs, and Edmonds is more of that field general guy. They're different players.
Yes.
And I understand the need for having them. But the good news is you have both of them. And Sanborn still sees reps with, Edwards and Edmonds on the team too. So it's not like he's like being, going to waste or anything like that. So, but yeah, it definitely is an interesting question for that. My Penthouse, I was between 2, But because it's been so long since we've been able to talk about this guy, I want to give him his due. Darnell Mooney, again, I predicted, thankfully, accurately that he was going to have himself a day, and he did. 5 catches, 82 yards on 6 targets, too. So he didn't even lead the team on targets, but he made the most of pretty much all of them. Just, some nice crossers, some nice opportunities to get some yards after the catch. I think he had a nice screen pass, too, even where he was taking it. For a guy who's just been so boom or bust this year, he's had a few games with 0 catches, 0 yards. Last week, of course, we talked about the 41-yard catch and then didn't do anything afterwards. It was awesome to see that he was like a much bigger focal point of the offense. And it just kind of feels like he was more one of the forgotten guys in the receiving room. So good to see that him bounce back. Hopefully this sort of like leads him to being back as like the strong wide receiver too, instead of somebody who just goes in the background.
It's a really good point. I think that on the onset of the season, that was kind of the thought, right? Was that, DJ Moore would be, the clear number 1. And if they decided to, blanket coverage him, then that would provide more opportunities for Darnell Mooney. And I don't think it's really happened up until the last couple of games. And he is athletic and he is fast and he's sure-handed. And I think that's a great call on the penthouse, but it makes my choice tough.
Oh, does it?
Maybe we should have a separate segment for Cole Kmet. I don't know. I mean, this is tough. I mean,
yeah,
I'm going to go linebackers. TJ Edwards, if you got a question about Edmonds or you got a question about, Yannick, I think to me, there's no more questions about TJ Edwards. Like, he is a beast. 15 total tackles, 10 solo. He had 1 tackle for a loss. He had a pass deflection and a quarterback hit. I mean, I don't know if the stats I just looked up a minute ago are the most up to date, but he was 3rd in tackles in the NFL last I looked. And I think that the sense that we had that perhaps those tackles were happening further down the field was a bit of a fallacy based on the PFF numbers that we saw earlier this week, where the Bears were ranked pretty darn high, weren't they, in terms of stuffing the run? Amongst the best in the league.
And their run defense is elite. Yeah.
Yes. So I mean, TJ Edwards. I mean, how do we keep Cole Kmet out of this conversation? That's like, maybe we're doing it wrong, but I was impressed with those 2 linebackers today.
No, we're going to this is going to be Cole Kmet, don't worry. But while you said that, okay. I want to give props to the Bears run defense because it continues to do well. And then the re-signing of Andrew Billings this week kind of fortified that. Yep. When I was looking up run yards per game, the Bears last year were giving up 157 yards per game. This year, it's 78. Now maybe that's different now. Yeah, I know. That's literally like half. They cut it in half. It's amazing.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
that's really impressive. Huh.
I know. And I know, like, I was just kind of using it in a sense of like to show Andrew Billings' impact, but I know it's not all him. It's guys like TJ Edwards. It's guys like DeMarcus Walker. Their run defense has improved dramatically, and that has helped this defense overall because it's made offenses become one-dimensional.
That's pretty cool. I mean, we try not to go meathead too often, but that's monsters of the Midway Black and Blue old school Bears football right there. That's fun. Let's go.
It's not bad. And look, New Orleans rushing 27 carries, 87 yards. So just a little above the average there. Not terrible for what this was.
Do you know where that put them in the league by chance? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but did they
were like top 5.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think they were 7th in yards per carry too. So either way, like, they're getting it done.
Good.
Cool. All right, look, we just got to give it to Cole Kmet for the final penthouse. Right? Dude was balling. We talked about that first catch. The second catch, though, we haven't talked about that. I loved the play design and how he held his release for just long enough, held his block for just long enough, and had a perfect release to get to that corner part of the end zone. Just beautiful job by Cole Kmet, and that's something you get with an inline tight end like that, where you sell the block long enough, you're good at it, but then you have enough speed and power to get out and track the ball in the end zone. I thought that was just a beautiful play. And yeah, Cole Kmet he's a good tight end, man. Like
Yes.
some people may not think so. I said he's not. I don't think Cole Kmet is elite, but like you have to be Travis Kelce, you have to be, I don't know, maybe Mark Andrews or something. You have to be like a top 2 or 3 tight end to be elite. I think he's firmly in that like top 7, top 8 category. And that's perfect. I think that's phenomenal for what you're asking him to do. So let me read you the stat line real quickly. Cole Kmet had 6 catches on 8 targets, 55 yards, and then of course the 2 touchdowns. So solid stat line for the Bears tight end.
I'm honestly curious because we know here that the elephant in the room is that, all year long and all of last year that Patrick Sheldon is not a big Cole Kmet fan. And one of the things that he's had beef with him about is that he's a good like zone sit down tight end, but that he can't gain separation. That second touchdown, true or false? An example of gaining separation. I mean,
That is true.
He developed, like you said, he was able to stay in line long enough to sell it. And then once he was able to like create that cushion, he kept it throughout the course of the route, that separation, 3 to 4 yards from the nearest defender. And then what a sweet dime. Nice ball that was from Bagent and a great catch. He's pretty darn sure-handed. I mean, did you say how many targets and catches he had, or just catches? I'm just curious.
No, he had 6 catches on 8 targets.
I mean, and I agree with you. Maybe he's not like, he's trending towards top 5 in the league if he were to continue and stay healthy. So yeah, we've said it before. There's a lot of mediocre in the league when it comes to tight ends, and ours is better than mediocre for sure. And in the discussion of amongst the best so far. And I think he's really invested in blocking a ton. The announcers, I think at least once today, alluded to a block that he had thrown that was an excellent block. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm okay with him.
I'm okay with him too. But look, I want to get to the conversation of Tyson Bagent because I think we've been kind of positive about this episode, about like the Bears game, which is interesting considering they lost. But I kind of put this, not kind of, I really put this loss on Tyson Bagent, and it's not to like, crap on him while he's down or anything like that, because we know who he is, the undrafted rookie, all of that. But you turn the ball over 4 times by yourself, essentially. You have some terrible throws, a bad read on that Cole Kmet interception, and then 2 just inaccurate throws where you can't miss as badly as you did going to Tyler Scott and Darnell Mooney to get picked off in the second half. So his stat line, I'll just read it: 18 for 30, 220, the 2 touchdowns to Kmet, 3 interceptions, only took 2 sacks, which isn't bad. Credit to the line and credit to him for navigating the pocket, with a quarterback rating of 65.3. So my question to you is, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, how much is this loss on Tyson Bagent? And kind of give me your thoughts on him as just as his performance overall.
Well, that's a really good question. I may back into the first question because I think we all agree that his poise is excellent, especially as a D2 undrafted free agent rookie. He stands in the pocket well, and he either A, shows the ability to be incredibly elusive when the pocket breaks down by either running. He does a nice job of choosing when to run, and he can run. He's nice on the scramble. Or if the pocket breaks down, he does a nice job of dumping to an outlet or throwing the ball away. Now we could, if we wanted to, we could belabor that. And I don't think we necessarily want to do a comparison between, Justin. It's not, I'm not really interested in the toxic debates that are going on Twitter, but rather just to say that I personally think that there's little doubt that is an area that if Fields were to improve upon, there would be little doubt as to whether or not Justin Fields would be our franchise quarterback going forward. Just that element that I just mentioned, that alone, maybe you'd add processing, but when Justin gets into the most trouble is when he doesn't handle the situations I just alluded to in a similar fashion that Bagent handles them. And I think Tyson Bagent handles them pretty darn well. Like I said, I think he's pretty good at the line of scrimmage. He's pretty good at making checks. Of course, I'm not inside the huddle and I'm not inside, the film room. So I don't know if he's making the correct checks against the correct defenses and so forth. But he seems to have a command of the huddle, a command of the offense. I think his arm strength is better than average. I think he can throw a deep out. I think he can hit somebody on a 9 route if he needs to. I think there's a lot of upside, and he's only going to get better the more he plays. I just think that his ceiling is way lower than Justin Fields. I think his ceiling is lower than we'd want it to be if he were going to be the quarterback that would change the trajectory of this franchise. And I know I said that last week, and I just keep thinking about it because that's what it takes to make a great football team in the NFL, is a quarterback that changes the trajectory of your franchise. And if we're being honest, that is not Tyson Bagent. And if we're being honest, he's a huge part of why they lost the game today, because he turned the ball over 4 times. You'd say that of anybody, any quarterback in the league. If they turn the ball over 4 times, obviously he's not solely responsible, but he's largely responsible for the loss.
Okay. So just curious, what's the number?
What percentage?
Or just like 1 out of 10, 10 being everything's his fault and he should be left at the airport.
Let's go 7.5.
Okay. I was also thinking 7 or 8. So we're kind of on the same line there.
Okay.
It's just, we're seeing now that he's a guy, and I'm essentially just going to say it in a simpler way that you just eloquently put it. He's a guy you can win with. He's not a guy you win because of, because when the game's on the line and he's starting to play from behind, we've seen this. I mean, you can argue you've seen it from Justin too. It's just, I feel like Bagent has made worse throws, and there's been, a lot more dinking and dunking to try and get it right. But when he's kind of like, backs up against the wall, you just don't see those smart throws or those accurate throws. And then he starts holding on to the ball a little bit too long. And, that's where the fumble comes in too. When things are working and you have a lead and you have a run game that's just beating the piss out of somebody, things are going to be good. He can play within that. He's calm. He does have that demeanor. But I think like it still just can only take you so far with what he has to offer. But I've said it. I've been a broken record. That's sort of what you get from a backup quarterback. You need the rest of the team to elevate him and to be good enough to win. And he's just not going to make those crucial mistakes. And then when things end up kind of falling from behind, or when you do have to play from behind, that's where the issues come in. And we saw that with the couple interceptions. And yeah, it changed the game in my opinion, because the Saints did get those points off turnovers. I think they got at least 10. So if you're talking about that, then that's the game, because otherwise the Bears win 17-14.
17-14.
Yeah. So that's clearly where the issue lies here. Again, we can talk about some of the play calls. We can talk about not scheming DJ Moore. All of those are valid, but when push came to shove, Bagent had the ball in his hands and he couldn't do anything with it. Or at least, especially in the second half, things were just falling apart. The Saints defense was kind of dropping back a little bit more, while also bringing pressure. I know that doesn't make sense, but I'm just saying, like, they were spying him a little bit more, and look what happened. So yeah, it's one of those. I know people on Twitter are having those debates of like, well, see, like Bagent's not all that, and I just don't like people trying to pick a side and everything. Like I'm on the side of the Bears, and I don't care who's playing quarterback. I hope that the starter returns, but I just want the team to win. And then just to stay in contention, because I don't want to root for losses for 2 years in a row and spend 2 years of my football life just hoping that we lose out to get better draft picks. I hate that. And like, it's just getting to that point now. The good news is we don't have to do that this Thursday, because we want the Bears to win so the Panthers continue to lose. But that's just not a fun way to live. So the discourse on social media has been interesting the last few days.
Yeah, the last week has been it's been something else, hasn't it? And I think the thing that you said that it was the most apt is really you saw him hang on to the ball, Tyson Bagent, like more and more as the game went on. And that's, I mean, for a dude that has thrown, a couple of interceptions, he's probably starting to get a little gun shy. And I get that. I mean, he's probably really, get as confident as he is. he wouldn't be human if he wasn't second guessing himself a bit after, tossing a few interceptions. So
yeah. And I will say the protection looked pretty good at
I think so
for the
too.
most part.
Yes. It was just when he hung on too long. Right. I mean, do you think it's apples to apples in terms of Justin hanging on to the ball too long when he gets in trouble and the way in which Bajent did? Or did our offensive line seem to suddenly let us down when we most needed them on the last 2 drives, or both?
It's a little of both, because I do
Okay.
remember there were a few plays, and I have to go back and watch the film, but there were a few plays where like pressure was coming in a little bit more.
Yeah.
I do remember distinct plays where Bajent had a lot of time and he's like kind of looking, he's processing. We know he has the quick feet in the pocket, and you could just see him kind of moving off, from read to read. Sometimes it's hard to see if Justin's doing that. Like I think at times presume he's not, but we don't actually know. It's just with how direct and how purposeful Bajent is with some of his movements, we can see it. And Justin's a little bit more, I've used the word lackadaisical in the pocket when dropping back. And so we don't necessarily see how much he's going through those reads. Yes. But yeah, I maybe it's a little bit apples to apples. But overall, I mean, I talked about the desire to just get Braxton Jones in there and give them continuity, but overall the line did very well, especially in an environment where it's difficult to make those checks and make those reads, as we talked about earlier. So I'm hoping that this is the end of the Tyson Bagent experience, because you don't want your backup quarterback to be the guy for the rest of the season and Justin Fields can play on Thursday. We'll see if that happens. But if he is, before we kind of get into like anything else we missed, I just sort of wanted to go back down memory lane and see where this ranks as far as backup quarterback stretches. So like I see that, the Bears had Tyson Bagent for 3 games. He won 1. I think back to like the Matt Barkley stretch in 2016, which was kind of interesting to watch. Caleb Haney, I guess, in 2011 when hit the wall. Chase Daniel in 2018. Let's see, 2013, obviously Josh McCown is the, I think gold star, but out of maybe like the last 15 years of those guys, where does that where's that rank for you?
It's such a great, interesting question, because we're all tired of, the Bears, carnival of quarterbacks graphics that we see every GD time the Bears play on national TV. But we talked a little bit pre-show, so I was trying to look around a little bit, and I mean, there are some interesting ones, right? From like Shane Matthews to Kyle Orton to, for a while there, Mitch was a backup Foles, and then Chase Daniels forever, but he was just a placeholder, and nothing more. I mean, Josh McCown is probably the high water mark, isn't he? I mean, he was he went 3-2. He threw for 1,800 yards, 13 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. In one game, he threw for 348 yards, which was pretty freaking impressive. And he kind of made a career off of that.
Career revitalization. He stayed in the league for another 5 years after that.
Because of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like you said last how many years? Because I mean, maybe is Steve Walsh
20?
Steve Walsh ever in terms of backups that have played?
Is he?
I mean, he was 8-3 as the team starter. They had a playoff win over the Vikings. He threw for over 2,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, 8 picks. He was the backup for Kramer for one more year in 1995. So, I don't know.
Maybe that is. You're right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just sort of, I think like in recent memory for me, maybe that's going back like 10, 15, 20 years, like McCown is the high watermark for sure.
Okay.
The 2004 cavalcade of suck was awful with Jonathan Quinn, Craig Krenzel. Although Bagent does remind me a little bit of Craig Krenzel because the Bears were able to win. They were, they won 1 game with him. Krenzel didn't look good at all, but they were somehow able to win. Chase Daniel was kind of exactly what you think you get out of a backup quarterback. You win a game, you might lose a game, but you're in it throughout the whole time. The Matt Barkley era was kind of fun for me. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I had no expectations whatsoever at the end of 2016, and he kind of balled out a little bit. Actually, he balled out enough where there were people making calls on sports radio for Matt Barkley to become the starter in 2017. I remember that.
Yes, I recall that as well, which may have just spoken to the starvation of quarterbacks that our city's been in for this long, that there was people banging on the table for Matt Barkley. But he did play well. I mean, he had flashes without question.
He did. So quick question. Do you think Justin Fields plays on Thursday?
Gosh, can I say I don't know? I don't know.
You can say you don't know.
I don't know if he can grip the ball. To me, that's what it comes down to. With the injury that he suffered to his throwing thumb, to me, when you talk about the level of control that is necessary in able to throw like NFL level 1, level 2, level 3, touch passes, screens, hand the ball off. I mean, the amount, it's like, it's like when you stub your big toe really bad, and then it's not until you stub your big toe really bad that you realize how freaking important it is for you to stand and walk and balance. I mean, I think the same thing would be true for the guy's thumb. And while I believe that the Bears have been relatively transparent about his status, I just don't know if we know the answers to the questions I just posed. If he can hang on to the ball, he starts. If he can control the ball, he starts. If he's still healing, then we see more Tyson Bagent.
Yeah, fair. I think he's going to push so hard. Like he tossed the ball a little bit on Friday. It looked fine coming out of his hands, but those were lob passes. We didn't see anything like, with a lot of forcing throws or whatever, or hard throws, I guess the word I'm looking for. So yeah, we'll see. It does suck that it is a Thursday night game. I think if it was a Sunday game, it would be very probable, but now it's just like definitely questionable. One thing I wanted to bring up before we got into anything else, and I think this was going to come up anyway. Montez Sweat. We didn't talk about Montez Sweat yet. So, of course, the Bears acquired him earlier this week. They signed the extension on Saturday. He plays on Sunday today, and he had, I'm going to get his stats in a second. I
have him. So he's 2 tackles, both solo, and a pass deflection. He also had one of those 2 tackles was the one where he pursued all the way down the line.
Right. Yeah.
And then pursued, I can't remember who the tackle was on, but I mean, it was a good, 8 to 10 yards down the field. Fantastic hustle.
Yeah, that's the kind of player he is. He's not going to quit on plays. He's going to, do what he can to make plays. I'm going to be interested to see what the snap count is, because I saw him on the field more often than not. So that was kind of a positive sign. Yes. You do wish that they were able to actually get after Carr. I don't think there were any sacks. I think somebody pointed out in the chat, I forgot who it was, but they didn't get any sacks, which was a big problem why the Bears couldn't do anything. But yeah, just like quick thoughts, because we haven't talked yet, and I'm sure it's going to get lost. Quick thoughts on the trade, extension, all of that. What'd you think?
Well, I liked it. I like the move. I like the instances in which Poles appears to be aggressive in the ways in which he goes after players. I like the stat line from Sweat this year. I like his age. I like his size. I like his agility.
Like his musk.
That too. Yeah, he's a handsome man. He but ostensibly he gives the Bears what they're lacking, and hopefully gives us the opportunity to assess a little bit more of the secondary if we actually start to begin to get a pass rush. I like the fact that we were able to extend him. I wish I fully understood the line of reasoning that occurred throughout the course of this week and the outrage. I mean, am I understating it? The people lost their minds this week. Lost their minds. Yeah, if Poles would have would have traded away a second-round pick for Sweat only to see him walk. Egregious, no doubt about it. But come on. I mean, have we had Indy? Like, do we just want the Bears to be awful? Is that what we want? We want the whole damn thing to be a dumpster fire. Pulls his shit and doesn't know what he's doing. Flus needs to be fired. Getsy's a horrible play call. Justin is a bust. Should we just go right on down the line? Because honestly, the evidence that we have for Poles so far, even though there are misses, and we may not agree with all the moves that he's made, he has acted in intelligent and pragmatic and calculated ways. I would have been shocked if there were an instance in which the Sweat deal was made without any extension. I mean, if it had happened, I'd have been on board with the people that were ready to riot. But I don't. Is it just because the team is so bad that people went there, Brendan? I mean, I don't understand where that outrage came from.
Yeah, I think it was because of the report that came out from, I think it was Graziano from ESPN, who said like the Falcons were ready, like they had a deal in hand essentially. They thought they were getting Sweat, and the Bears kind of swooped in with the higher bid. Washington accepted it, and it basically said like to their knowledge, the Bears they didn't have a deal yet in place, or at least a framework to kind of go with. So that set a lot of people off, saying, oh, the Bears are just being reactionary. They don't have a plan. They're just trying to, piece this along as they go. They're building the train is coming while they're building the tracks. And in my head, I didn't go full meatball there, but I did have a sense. I was like, well, it kind of seems like they don't have a deal yet, and you get a little bit nervous there. So hopefully like this isn't the case, but I essentially was just like, a deal has to get done. Like this doesn't make any sense. And it just feels like it's going to get done. And then I heard Ryan Poles speak, and I know talk is talk, but like listening to him right away, I said, we are confident that we are going to get a deal done with Montez Sweat very soon. As soon as he said that, I'm like, okay, I feel a lot better now. Like, yeah. Papa Poles, you made me feel good. So thank you. And then sure enough, like a few days later, they did get it. So it was very, I think just Bears fans and Bears social media, like it's gotten to a point where you have to have extreme takes on everything. And either the GM is the best GM in the world, King Poles does it again, or he has no idea what he's doing and he should be fired on the spot. There's almost no room for nuance or no room for, like to kind of like have a middle ground like that. And yeah, my first reaction was like, yeah, okay, great. A deal better get done. I think it will get done. It does make me slightly nervous that there haven't been any conversations yet. But at the same time, I'm like, let's see what Ryan Poles says first. And then if he came up to the podium and said, yeah, we haven't talked deal yet. We'll see where we get there. Like it sort of just kind of gave you that BS, like, yeah, we'll kind of see. We have time. I would have been very nervous. But the fact he was like, I have a plan. Here's what I'm doing, made me feel a lot better. So yeah, the player himself. What's that?
I think that's fair. And I understand like there was maybe a sequence of events where Sweat himself, was asked about it, and he just, kind of said, well, I'm just trying to figure out where I'm going to lay my head down at night.
Yeah.
And there's that report. But I think like where I'm with you here is like, and I tweeted it, just like what if what's happening inside Hallis Hall is like completely oppo of what you think is happening in Hallis Hall. I mean, I just think that most of us have no clue about the logistics of what it is that Ryan Poles is doing. I mean, the guy hadn't gone through his physical yet. He hadn't signed yet. So we don't know what was discussed in the room where it happened. We're back in the year 2000 where everything needs to be extreme. Yeah, I feel like it. Like, yeah, X. Exhibit is a famous rapper. But yeah, what I like about our show, and I'm obviously biased, is that we don't deal in conjecture and we don't really, peddle rumors. And I just felt like, reports say yada, 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 and Sweat is saying, this. What else would Sweat say? I think what people say to the media and what actually is happening behind closed doors in terms of both logistics and conversations are probably vastly different than what it is that we think. And I don't know. I mean, I get we love the team. I'm trying not to be too critical because there is emotion in it and everybody can fan how they want. But as much as we can we still try to deal in like what's happening, like factually, and then react to that? Because I don't understand like what the benefit is of going down the rabbit hole that so many people went down until it actually does or does not happen, that Sweat is signed or not. Like I don't know. Am I old?
Everybody just wants to like feel like they're smarter than everybody else, and
Yeah.
you read into things. It's like the English teacher that tries to. Sorry if you teach English, I can't remember. But everybody wants to like kind of read between the lines and sort of like, well, what does this mean, and what is the interpretation here? It's like Montez Sweat just got into town. He just got his life uprooted. And he's just like, yeah, I'm just kind of trying to see what this is all about here first. And, like imagine somebody asking you, like you move halfway around the country to a new place. You're expected to show up for your job right away. And somebody's asking you, so how long are you going to stay? You're going to sign on for like 4 years? Like
Will
you're
there
going
be
to
an
start talking about
extension, Brennan? Will
Yeah.
there be an extension? I don't know. Like I freaking just got signed, man. Like,
yeah, like
yeah,
give me a minute to breathe. I took nothing, I didn't really. I totally felt for Montez in that situation, and hearing Ryan Poles talk about the conversations with his agents, I'm like, that's what I care about more. Not that I don't care about what Montez Sweat says, but I'm taking more credence, or I'm reading more into that, if anything, to show that Ryan Poles is telling you what's happening versus Montez Sweat just saying, because people were saying, well, he doesn't want to be here because he doesn't want to talk about the extension. Like he doesn't know if he wants to be here or not. He just got here.
Right. And like in Jalen Johnson, simultaneously can say that he's the best cornerback, that he's the best cornerback in the league. And Jalen Johnson can say that he's going to be upset if Sweat gets, extended before him. But again, like we don't know what the timeline is. We don't know what the discussions between the agent and the player and the agent and the front office look like. If Johnson is asking for top tier money, then that deal's not going to get done before the Sweat deal gets done. It's just not, And so in terms of like that pacing and timing, and again, the logistics, it's just a lot of noise. I just think it's so much noise. And the way Pace put it with Jalen Johnson too, he's like, we never even got to a number. Like we never even got to the point where we talked about a number. And people are like, again, losing their minds about stuff that Jalen Johnson is saying. Well, what else is Jalen Johnson going to say? He's a smart dude. Yeah, I think I'm the best cornerback in the league, and I should be paid like that. Of course he's going to say that. Like, wouldn't you say that if you were in negotiations? Yeah, I'm going to be mad if they do that extension before mine because I've been here for longer. Yeah, I get it. I understand. You have been. But where are we at in terms of like coming to an agreement, which is all that matters really when it comes down to it. And let's say, by the way, we all talked about wanting to re-sign Jalen Johnson, but we all also admitted that he doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and that he's also injured a lot. Would I still like to sign Jalen Johnson because he's like homegrown and developed and a really good corner? Yeah, but the price has to be right or he walks, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, like they've had a lot more time to figure it out too. Like Sweat just got here.
Yeah.
He could be mad if he wants, but it's like, bro, you've had time to get this done. And Ryan Poles even said, in his mind at least, he thought they were getting close to a deal. And then again, going back to like the extreme reactions, I think it's okay. It's also like on social media, you can have those raw, immediate reactions. Like when it came out late at night on Monday night that Jalen Johnson requested a trade, I was pissed. I was so mad, because it just sort of came out of nowhere, and it then seemed like, okay, well, the Bears are going to trade him then, and then you get more of the story and what Ryan Poles is saying, and then he's like, look, I thought we were close. They came back and said we want to explore a deal. We're going to grant that. Here's the value we put on you. This is how much we value you. And we're, if teams give us something that we deem valuable, okay, we'll do it. But at the same time, we don't want to lose you for nothing because that's how much we value you. You can then take a step back and look at that and say, okay, that makes more sense now. I do appreciate how Ryan Poles sort of isn't as like secretive or sort of like, too behind the scenes, I guess, and just says like, I'm going to explain it to you like it actually happened. And I'm not going to try and like, remain secretive about things. And I think that's really nice. yeah, so it's just been a crazy week, and with all of these, trade rumors and extensions and trades and everything of that, like all of the reactions come out of the woodwork, and it just sort of gets to be too much. So, and I think that's, goes back to what we opened with about why you drove away from the gas station with the gas pump.
Yeah,
Still in your
I
car.
guess yeah, I'm not above the fray, that's for sure.
No.
And face it, if the team was winning, then these conversations wouldn't be happening, and that's the sheer facts of it. And we all want the team to win.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line. We want the team to win. We really care about this team. It's like we've said before, it's woven into the fabric of our families. And like for me, my children, and like my father who passed away last fall, like, yeah, there's emotion. Like we want this team to be good, and when they're not, it is freaking frustrating. And maybe sometimes it brings out the worst of us. But I do think, I just think in this particular instance, and I know we probably want to wrap up here, Brendan, but unpopular opinion, I do think that there could be a crest to all of this. I think the rebuild is still in full motion. I think Poles has not changed his focus. And I don't think Flus has changed his focus, whether you like it or not, whether you like him or not. And there's plenty to be upset with. I absolutely, we've not performed the way that we should and could so far this season. But I do think that those folks are taking a much more macroscopic approach to this. And of course, way more macroscopic. And I guess steady pace wins the race than most fans are. Fans are gonna they want to fire everybody into the sun. But I don't think that's the stance of this organization right now. And I'm kind of for it, if I'm being honest. Let's plug ahead. Let's keep getting draft picks. Let's keep drafting high talent. Let's keep trading for them during free agency. Let's keep developing them as much as we humanly can. Perhaps Flus isn't as bad of a coach as we think he is. Again, I always say, when I went to the coaching clinic the one year, and the guy who coached the 7-foot high jumper was asked about what made him such a good coach, his answer was, nobody really came to me to ask me to speak at clinics until I had this 7-foot high jumper. And then all of a sudden, everybody wanted me to come speak at clinics. Like, let's face it, right? Like, there's a limit to the amount of success that you can have depending on the relative talent that you have. And so I just think that even though it has been ugly in instances, there is a world in which this possibly all crests in a good way, maybe Detroit Lions style. Maybe I'm just being hopeful. Maybe I'm just being naive. But what I do think I know is that these guys are like steady as she goes throughout all this.
Yeah, we'll see. I definitely have my reservations. I don't really have faith in this staff right now. Overall, I think some things have improved, but some things have regressed and maybe remain the same. The last thing I'll say about this, on a positive note, it feels like the locker room has not been lost. It seems like the Bears reporters have kind of, talked about that. They said, things are still kind of steady, and there hasn't been big blow-ups or anything yet. So there's a positive there, I guess, because losing can definitely, unless you're Chase Claypool, where that was kind of a blow-up, but then you get shipped out. But it seems like people, at the very least, are handling it in stride as best they can. Okay, anything else? I know we're kind of going over here. Anything else from the game that you want to get to before we get to shout-outs and head out?
The only thing I would mention just briefly is I'll get off of this crusade when it gets too old, but I really do hope that there is some plan on the major networks to revitalize the booths. I don't remember which of the dudes was that said it, but something to the effect of after Bajent scrambled for that 20, 30-yard run, and then he got up and he did his emphatic first down symbol. One of those guys was like, well, that's the most enthusiasm, that I've seen out of Bajent, after watching the last 3 weeks. Well, that's just freaking wrong, dude. Then you're just not watching then. You're just not watching. Yeah. So they're underprepared. They don't know the team. I don't understand, from what we talked about. A, either have local guys follow the team and do the broadcast all the time, or B, do a Manning cast or something like that. Baseball gets it right. They let the game speak for itself. Why these dudes think they have to come up with some bullshit narrative every game, Maybe I'm just getting old like my father, and I should just mute the television and listen to the radio. If it stinks up, I might start doing that. Honestly, now I know why Dad did that.
See, stuff like that doesn't necessarily bother me. No, not really. Only when they get things factually wrong. Like they had they said Tyreek Stevenson was in coverage against DJ Moore on that pass breakup in the end zone, and that's just not right.
Wait, Tyreek Stevenson was in coverage on DJ Moore?
Yes, that you heard that right.
Yeah, that's not.
At least that's how I heard it. But I appreciate how they sort of like break down the offensive schemes and what's happening and all that. That I definitely want to hear. I don't need to hear sort of your, narratives on what you think, like, Bajan's not showing enough motion, or Justin Fields can learn something from Tyson Bagent and all that. I don't give a damn about that. Just tell me what you think about this scheme. Tell me who's open, why it worked, why it didn't work, and then we'll all be happy. So I didn't like that there was an offensive line offsides. Haven't seen that in a long time. That was the dumbest thing, I think, from the game. I thought Matt Eberflus had a good challenge. That was good. You don't see that often. And then, oh gosh, well, I'll just say it once. Stop putting Velus Jones on offense. That's all I'll say. Please. Hey, we almost got to an hour and a half. We didn't say his name.
Yeah. I'm choosing not to broach the Velus Jones topic anymore.
I understand. All right, man. We've had fun just shooting the you-know-what here. Let's get to shout-outs, and we'll get out of here. Who you got?
Well, I've got some bad news. The Psycho Spartans were knocked out of the playoffs yesterday at Gately Stadium in Chicago, Illinois, by a fantastic Morgan Park team. You should have seen, Brendan. They've got a couple of, I think, 2 Division I prospects at wide receiver. Oh, jeez.
Oh, dude, yeah. I want to see good like high school wide receiver.
Oh my gosh, it was something. But the Spartans had a fantastic season, and props to them and their coach, their athletic director Chauncey Carrick, their head coach Coach Ryan, defensive coaches, everybody. Just they've had Sycamore, as you can probably tell, in the last like 2 to 3 years since we've been doing this, has had quite a run. I mean, they make the playoffs just about every year. Great first round records, and it's a testament to them, to the coaches, to the players. Shout out to my son Connor, who was on kick return and played 2 years varsity, and so I'm really proud of him and the work that he did as well. So those are my primary shout outs, just as their season tragically ended. BT Dubs, I won't even say how it ended because I don't want to do that to the kid. It'd just be,
Is this this is Connor's this was his last game then?
Yeah, Connor's a senior. Yeah. So that's
tough.
like that last game is just like, it's like somebody's stolen your wallet and like, like punched you in the kidneys on the way out the door. It hurts, man. Hurts.
Yeah, especially just being bittersweet too. Like it's, it's a good run and everything, but yeah, that's tough. Well, yeah, at least, they made a run to the playoffs.
I said to my sons, they both played more playoff games than I've ever played. I played 0 playoff games. Now I've coached some playoff games and was very fortunate that we won a state championship, which was fantastic, but I never played a playoff game. So kudos to those two. That's really cool.
I didn't either. Unless you count flag football. In that case, I won 3 championships. So
then I'm counting it. It counts, Brendan.
It does. I had a Julian Edelman type game in the championship.
Let's go. That's so fun, man. You'll never forget that.
No, we don't. I swear to God. I swear to God, we were reminiscing last weekend with my buddies, and just it was like 5-7 years ago at this point, and we were just talking about some of the games. So and there's one game where the ref even talked. He's like, "Dude, all day with you," and I'm just like, "Hell yeah, man!"
Yeah, it's cool when they recognize it. Hey, real quick, you should play in our Turkey Bowl game this year if you want.
We need to talk about that. Oh my God!
Some details.
Oh my God! I'm so excited.
It's so fun. It's so fun.
Can I bring a friend?
Let me find out. It's a kind of a family,
Okay.
family.
Okay.
So, but I can find out.
Okay. Either way, I would be very happy to. Okay. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Right. Okay. 2 quick shout outs. First goes to one of our friends, first guest ever on the podcast, Adam Rank. I got a message from Rank. We did a podcast together on his The Sick podcast on Friday evening. And it was so funny. He just asked me on, with like a little bit notice. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm free. And then he goes on the show and he's like, yeah, we were going to have David Carr on, but he couldn't do it. So here's Brendan. And I'm like, that is the best thing ever.
That's
like,
so cool.
And I think for a second, he probably was like, oh, like, I don't want you to feel bad or anything. I was like, no, if you're telling me I'm a fill-in for David Carr from the NFL Network, the former #1 overall pick, like, yeah, that's pretty damn cool. I'll take
That's
it.
cool as hell.
So, so shout out to Adam. We had a fun show. Good to always talk with him. And then shout out to my buddy Kyle. I've talked about him a few times on the podcast. He listens, but he also reads my Bears Wire stuff. And he just he lives for my bold predictions every week. And I almost didn't get him out because there was just so much stuff going on with Bears news. And he texted me as soon as I released him. And he's like, oh, I love this. I love this. He's like, it makes my day every time I see it. And I was like, dude, thank you. Like, it gets exhausting writing about trying to come up with new, fresh things for Bears Wire, especially during the season. And I know he dissects them with me. He's like, okay, I agree with this. I don't agree with that. But he just said, he's like, it makes my Saturday every time that I can read those. So really cool to hear from one of my good friends. So thank you, Kyle. It means the world. So we'll figure out what we're doing for next week. We'll see. It's a Thursday night game. Yeah, I know, another quick turnaround, man. 2 Thursday games. That's crazy. But for everybody who's listened, everybody who continues to follow us through this just brutal Bears season, we appreciate you. As always, please like, subscribe, rate the audio podcast, subscribe to the YouTube, put your thumbs up. Yes. Oh, no, Jack, don't. There you go. There you're doing the thumbs up. Can I do it? Come on.
I don't know why yours doesn't do it.
Why not?
You have to figure that out.
What's wrong with my thumb, man? Whatever. We're having fun with the YouTube stream. But anyway, if you want to see us, make really random gestures to try and get things going, follow us on YouTube. Again, check us out on all our social media. We'll release all of our shows. But for Mr. Jack Wright, Mr. Ryan Dingle, Mr. Patrick Sheldon, Mr. Gift, Logan Bradley, I am Brendan Shagrew. Thank you all so much. And as always, bear down, Chicago.